Okay, seeing as we decided to film a thriller intro, we thought it'd be appropriate to actually research the thriller genre, and through doing this we've managed to compile a slideshow of the definition of the thriller genre. Okay, so by definition, thriller is a genre of film that uses suspense and tension and excitement as its main elements. So you need this to entice the audience and make them want to come and see the film. So a genuine standalone thriller is a film that it provides thrills and keeps the audience in that cliffhanging mode, almost like edge of the seat attitude, so that the plot builds slowly towards a climax, or there's a plot twist, something that needs to keep the audience in suspense. It usually arises when characters are placed in menacing situations, like a mystery or a trap from which escaping seems impossible. Life is usually threatened because the principal character is unsuspectingly or unknowingly involved in dangerous or deadly situations that they perhaps can't understand or are perhaps out of their control. Thrillers often overlap with mystery stories, but they're distinguished by the structure of their plots. So, in a thriller, the hero must thwart the plans of an enemy rather than uncover the crime that's already happened. So subgenres, thriller can be divided into several subgenres, and there's infinite amounts and variations, but we've managed to compile that these are the main ones. So you have conspiracy thriller. These can be your spy films and various plots against the government. Psychological thriller, you've got your classics like Psycho and anything that involves with the character's mind, and suspense is created through that. Crime thriller, the Godfather, your gangster films, disaster thrillers, also called disaster movies, such as Independence Day, 2012, anything that involves lots of mindless destruction. A legal thriller can be called, like your courtroom dramas, where cases are settled and there's lots of tension in the courtroom. Medical thrillers, such as, like ER, mainly focused in hospitals, will this patient die, won't they? And mystery thrillers, which we've already covered. Okay, so going by the decades, I'll start in 1920. So one of the earliest thrillers was Harold Lloyd's comic, so mild and funny, Safety Last. It was featured an all-American boy performing a daredevil stunt on the side of a skyscraper. I'm sure that at the time this would have been a silent movie, and also the prospect of a daredevil stunt man messing about on the side of a skyscraper would have excited the audience. Other thrillers of the time include The Cat and the Canary, and also a film from English director Alfred Hitchcock, who's incredibly famous, but this was back when. This is one of his very early films, a silent film called The Lodger, suspenseful Jack the Ripper story, and this was then followed by another thriller called Blackmail, which was his first sound film. In the 1930s, one of the most famous thrillers and maybe controversial thrillers of the time was a German film called M, which was directed by the great Fritz Lang, and it was about a criminal deviant, a child killer to be precise. The film's story was based on the life of a real serial killer called Peter Kürtke. It wasn't a real serial killer. The film's story was based on the life of a serial killer, Peter Kürten, known as the Vampire of Dusseldorf. We then also have Edward Sutherland's crime thriller Murders in the Zoo. It was released by Paramount and featured a murderous and jealous zoologist. Again, maybe not to be taken entirely seriously. In the 1940s, almost the introduction of psychological thrillers. So Gaslight featured a scheming husband plotting to make his innocent young wife go insane. Again, very much the psychological thriller playing on the mind. The Picture of Dorian Gray, which introduced more of a supernatural thriller. So it was a man who was forever young, and all of the aging and binging would be absorbed into his portrait rather than to himself. The Third Man, a very famous one from Orson Welles, and this was the story of a writer in Vienna who finds out that his old friend is a black marketeer. Again, this is more conspiracy thriller. You know, friendships, you know, are broken and lots of twists in the story. So in the 1950s, we have Strangers on a Train, which again is more of the suspense thriller. You know, the suspense is conveyed through conversations characters have. You know, there's a lot of tension. Dial M for Murder, another one that plays very much more on tension. This could even be incorporated into the mystery thriller, because you know lots of people being killed. It was also shot in 3D, which is interesting because 1954, this could be when 3D was first introduced and maybe just starting to take off. Rear Window, famous Alfred Hitchcock. Again, suspense is built over mystery and murder. Right, and the 1960s saw the introduction of Michael Powell's Peeping Tom, which I believe actually got banned when it was first released because it showed scene. It was about a psychotic cameraman who would stalk and then murder young women, and this actually predated Hitchcock's Psycho, which is obviously the more famous thriller of the time, but it definitely helped pave the way. Another one from the 60s is Cape Fear. Again, as a thriller, it very much relies on suspense between characters. You know, there's threat, the main character's in danger. Another one here, Wait Until Dark, about a victimised blind woman who falls victim to a sadistic con man. So again, it's almost like the strong preying on the weak. The 1970s actually was Steven Spielberg's debut as a director with his low-budget TV movie Jewel, simply about a travelling salesman being harassed by a truck, and it was a very, very simple premise but very effective thriller. Clint Eastwood's directorial debut, Play Misty for Me, featured a California disc jockey pursued by a disturbed female listener. Again, it's like almost like an early Fatal Attraction. It's relying on characters' relationships and the tension within them. The 1980s, Dressed to Kill, which was inspired by Psycho. So again, it was when thrillers were finding themselves having to draw inspiration from older films. Yeah, and then again, as I mentioned before, Fatal Attraction was actually released in 1987. Again, a similar story. It was a cheating husband pursued by a psychotic girlfriend. Again, danger, suspense. The 1990s saw the release of Silence of the Lambs, which was a big hit at the time, which again relied on dialogue, interaction between characters to create the suspense. David Fincher's Seven, again this can be related to the mystery thriller. It's a series of murders, incredibly grim, which actually can almost blur the lines between thriller and horror for this particular film. And then also Speed was again your typical thriller, a dangerous situation, in this case a bus with an explosive on board, characters interacting with each other, you know, constant threat of being blown up. 2000s onwards, you've got Christopher Nolan's Memento, which was quite a strange film as the main character searching for the killer of his wife, however he has no short-term memory, so every new thing he learns in the investigation he then forgets the next day. Also M. Night Shyamalan's Signs, again, was like a sci-fi thriller, featured aliens, again suspense. It very much relied on more of what you don't see is what keeps you in suspense rather than full-on action. Thrillers today, you generally find that they include a lot of explosions and like action, but it also complements like the acting as well. There needs to be good acting because I don't think audiences are as receptive to non-stop action as they perhaps were years ago. The storylines have got gradually better, maybe a bit more confusing, more interesting, because audience is become more demanding over the years.